All right, listen up. I'm about to tell you something that most GCSE students won't hear. I've gone through all the exam board's official reports on the exam. Now, these are official documents they produce after each exam cycle. They basically say what examiners actually want to see when they're marking exams, mistakes that most students are making, and crucially, how to get up to those top level standard 8s and standard 9s. But here's the thing, nobody's telling you this stuff. Most teachers don't read these reports, and most students don't even know that they exist. In this video, I'm going to give you the secrets. If you want the insider information on how to do well on your GCSE exams, listen up, because this stuff might save your grades. First off, don't pre-learn analysis. In recent years, the exam boards are very aware that there are tons of social media accounts out there with pre-written bits of analysis for literature essays. They're saying don't use it. If you're not actually responding to the question that you've been given and just vomiting a load of words that you've learned, you're not actually engaging with the question at hand, and they're really against this in recent years. Instead, what the exam boards are keen on is your opinion on extracts. Now, in order to be able to practice this and get good at it, you've got to start practicing annotating extracts. Take a 30-line chunk of whatever text you're studying and annotate it with a pencil. Look for anything you can say about a character or a theme from that text and make a note of which quotations tell you something about that theme. Then get good at practicing the first line of essays, what they call the thesis statement. Give me a sentence where you say something interesting about a character or a theme in that extract and make it as sophisticated and precise as you possibly can. Keep practicing this as much as possible before you get to the exam. Next up, here's the secret about learning quotation. Everyone knows you're going to learn some quotations before you go into your literature exam, but what you want to make sure that you're doing is making them useful quotations and using them well. If you've got some quotations that show how a character changes over time, so one from the start of the text and one from the end of the text that shows some sort of development, those are going to be really useful. But make sure when you're writing an essay, it's actually relevant to the point you're making. The exam board is really against just crowbarring in any quotation just because you've learned it and you've seen it on a website saying these are the 10 most useful quotations. Make sure that it actually matches the point that you are making. Next, a word on explaining writers' methods. Now, most people think this means just throwing around a bunch of technical terminology. So as you're explaining a quotation, you say something like, by using the simile this or the verb this. Actually, the exam board is really against this type of labeling of techniques. And what they want is to be a bit more sophisticated in the way that you explain methods. So if you talk about, in general, in this extract, Shakespeare is using imagery of this. For example, this quotation, that's kind of useful. But a really useful tip here is to use character as a method, a technical term. So rather than talking about a character like they're a real person, so Lady Macbeth is this, or Lady Macbeth acts like this, just use the phrase, Shakespeare has created Lady Macbeth to do this, to give a particular effect to the audience, and then explain the effect with the quotation. That's a method that the writer used, and they've been really pushing this character thing in recent years. Lastly, context. Now, I know it feels like preparing for an exam, if you learn loads of historical context, lots of facts and figures or biographical information about the writer, you're doing lots of worthy revision. But the exam board's really pushing against this. If you're going to use context, it's worth fewer marks than the actual analysis of the extract, and you should always tie your contextual information to the actual analysis of quotations. So rather than just listing a bunch of facts and figures, tell me why a quotation at the time would have been seen as something slightly different, or why it particularly resonates with that writer. If you're not tying it to analysis of quotations, you're not going to do very well in terms of marks. So if you're following all of this, you're going to be tapping into exactly what examiners have been saying they're looking for in recent years and what they're being told to look for whenever they're marking exams. The only thing is, shh.